Let's take a look at the notable quarterback signings in free agency, of course, starting with the bag man himself and Kirk Cousins. 4-year, $180 million deal with the Falcons. Baker Mayfield returns to the Buccaneers as expected on a 3-year, $100 million deal. Russell Wilson takes a 1-year, $1.21 million deal with the Steelers. That's the minimum because the rest of his about $38 million will be paid out by the Broncos. Good business for Russ. Gardner Minshew, a 2-year, $25 million deal with the Raiders. Sam Darnold gets a 1-year deal with the Vikings. Same with Jacoby Brissett with the Patriots. Jameis Winston will be backing up Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, not Joe Flacco. Marcus Mariota, I have been told that 1-year, $6 million deal with the Commanders is fully guaranteed. So get your Mariota jerseys. They'll be good for at least a year. And then Joe Flacco reportedly signed a 1-year, $8.7 million deal, or up to $8.7 with the Colts. Mason Rudolph ends up going to the Titans as Will Levis is back up on a 1-year deal worth up to $3.62 million. Guys, we have to start with Kirk Cousins because obviously in fantasy, Matthew, this moves the needle by far the most. And before we even get to any of Cousins' deal, kind of a funny bit on Kyle Pitts calling him when they had to talk about that number 8. Take a listen.
He actually texted me about it, and I said, Kyle, I want to be a good teammate. That's ultimately what I want to be. So I said, if it's the number you want to pivot from, great, you let me know. I obviously have worn number 8 since high school. If it's a number you'd like to keep, great, no problem. I can find another number. So I just want to be a good teammate, and I do believe it's bigger than Kyle and I. I think the league will start to speak into things, and we'll just see how that all plays out. But he was funny about it. I said, I'll write a check, whatever, foundation. I'm not going to let you just give me the number. I want to make it worth your while. Make a donation, whatever it needs to be. And he said, I just want, targets every game. He said, he was joking, he kind of winked. So I joked with him. I said, good answer.
All laughs in Atlanta.
Sounds to me like Kyle Pitts has Kyle Pitts in fantasy.
Right.
Because everyone that has Kyle Pitts in fantasy is like, yes, he wants targets. Get this guy targets.
Or he's tired of hearing about it in fantasy, which
that
I would understand.
As well. Kirk's going to wind up with number 8. By the way, just yeah.
-3.
And this is a massive move for fantasy. Kirk's value, I don't think, really changes. I mean, Kirk Cousins, by the way, is he's a low-end QB like always. He was quarterback 7 on a points per game basis prior to the injury. He's going to be somewhere in that 7 to 10 range, right? In Atlanta, I like the fact that he stays in a dome. He goes to a worse conference. I'd much rather be in the NFC South than the NFC North.
Zach Robinson, same offense.
Same offense with Zach Robinson, who worked with McVay in LA and Kevin O'Connell. So it's Zach Robinson's running the same offense that he was running in Minnesota, basically. And you could argue that he has as good, if not better, weapons than he had in Minnesota. I get that there's no Justin Jefferson on this team, but Drake London's a really good player that they could never get the ball to. And now he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, throughout his career, has always been able to support a number 1 wide receiver for fantasy, whether it was Terry McLaurin in Washington, whether it was Justin Jefferson, or even Adam Thielen when he first got to Minnesota. So Drake London's fantasy value takes a huge stock up. Cousins has always used the tight end, going back to Jordan Reed in Washington, or you think about Minnesota with Hawkinson. And some of the other guys, like we tried to make Irv Smith a thing there for a while, But no, seriously, that's always Cousins likes the tight end. He always likes to throw to the middle of the field. So Kyle Pitts, who's as talented as any tight end in the NFL, massive upgrade here. And then you've got Bijan. Bijan's better than any guy that was on the Vikings.
Yeah, I think just the one concern is that we are all just kind of putting last year's Kirk Cousins into next year's or this year's Atlanta's team, and it's like, he's 36 years old, coming off a torn Achilles on his plant leg. He may not be the same level, but I think he'll be an upgrade. Certainly, you would expect over everything they got this year, but he may not be the exact same guy. And so, obviously, massive stock up for Drake London, for Darnell Mooney as well, who's a wide receiver 2 on the team, for Kyle Pitts. But what I'm most interested in, Connor, is how much do you think this benefits Bijan Robinson?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Mooney move because that's a field stretcher that creates space and takes defenders out of the box, and that's what's going to help Bijan Robinson is the fact that this team can threaten to throw the ball. Last year, they could not threaten to throw the ball. Nobody respected them. Which means
Lawrence Jackson did. Let's be clear. Lawrence Jackson respected him, but no one rational respected them.
So Bijan is, we're all the way back in. Right where we were last year. We're all the way back in on Bijan and
I'm
offensive coordinator of the feature.
For the first time in my life, I'm in on Kyle Pitts and Drake London, because it's not that I was ever out on him talent-wise, but I just, I'm not a Desmond Ridder guy, not a Mariota guy, not a Arthur Smith guy, any of what they had prior. And I think that's why they got the contract that they did. Is, from what I understand, is that Arthur Blank just said, I'm sick of being in this.
Yeah, get it done.
Get it, whatever it takes. Get me a real quarterback, because they haven't had a real quarterback since Matt Ryan retired, and so they're just since Matt Ryan left, right? And so they're like, Arthur Blank was just finally like, I'm sick of this. Get me a real quarterback.
Off
I don't
a
care
blank
what. Here's a blank check.
Very nice.
Right. Yes.
That surely has been made 55 times.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
I just haven't heard it yet.
It's a blank space.
Yeah.
I'll write your name.
Yes.
Shout out to all my Swifties.
Cousins was on pace for a career year before he obviously had the season-ending injury.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.